All right, Josh, we want to talk another sequence here related to choosing the best depth possible for a given situation. Here we've got Josh on the back door. I'm going to put him even a little bit deeper, like right about here. And I want you just to respond in a conservative way. So attach yourself to the post and try to get over to play this puck from Josh. You're not poke checking these ones. Save. Drop. Two more. Whoa, sorry. Last one. Nice. So that one, we let some pucks come through the blue paint. You made some great saves there, and you're required to make great saves because you let the pass get to him. Josh, watch your jibbers, watch your face, be in the same spot. Now, I'm just going to ask you not to be crazy aggressive. Just step off the post by about a foot. And we're going to recreate the same passing lanes and see if you can prevent him from getting it in the first place. Last two. Come out to the top of the crease now. Last one. So I think there's a happy medium. You have two choices how to play this. You can let the puck come through here and then make a miraculous backdoor save, which can happen, it's your choice. But for me, if you're at the top of the crease, that passing gate is so small. And Josh, are you gonna score with the puck stuck up in your mouth?
No.
He's not. So I don't want you to be chasing hyper aggressive, because if you miss it, he's got an empty net tap in. But for me, the odds are always going to favor if he doesn't get the puck in the first place. Thanks, Josh.
Mackenzie, how you doing?
Not bad, how are you, Steve?
Great. So we've known each other for a long time, and I've been a huge fan of yours. Really respect what you do because of your purpose, not circus philosophy, which you and I share together. And besides that, us being good-looking, amazing shape athletes, we have a lot in common.
Absolutely, obviously, absolutely.
You've had a lot of success training high-end NHL players like Brian Campbell, the Brown kid. We've also got, what's the guy from the Detroit Red Wings? Jason Williams.
Jason Williams.
Some Stanley Cups there. So you've got a great pedigree for dealing with high-end athletes. And you also have trained me, so a big drop-off there. I want to talk today a little bit about what you do and what you offer. So being a personal trainer, coaching off the ice is a huge component in all fitness. So what would you say is your philosophy?
I think you kind of nailed it on the head when you said train with a purpose. I mean, ultimately, when I established Precision Fitness Performance Center, which is almost 10 years ago now, I really found that the industry had a lack of purpose in terms of the strength and conditioning elements and the training that goes into a lot of the athletes out there. Whereas you're essentially going into gym settings, but what are you going into gym settings for? What's the reason you're in there? What are your particular goals and why are you doing things? So train with a purpose kind of nails our philosophy in the head with that regard. We want to make sure that when athletes are coming into our facility that they have established strength and conditioning routines, so they're in understanding of why they're doing those routines. We want to make sure that we're establishing a base foundation in terms of assessments and evaluations and really understanding kind of what their body needs in terms of that philosophy.
I think that's one reason why people should reach out to you, because when you have people that have played, coached, scouted in the NHL, they understand quality and they understand actual credibility. And I think the great things about social media would be that you can expand knowledge of a lot of people, but it also creates the perception that there's a lot of misplaced expertise and there's a lot of goofy stuff. And like we teach kids as a goaltender, you have to be a critical thinker and evaluate what you're being taught. So what would your advice be to a young athlete to know if they're getting proper training?
I think really you have to look at not only the implementation of the strength and conditioning program, but the steps that lead up to the implementation of the strength and conditioning program. So if you're walking into a gym and you're coming in to see a trainer and that trainer's like, hi, what's your name? Okay, let's get ready to get into a program. I'm going to take you through this routine, or come on in and jump into our boot camp. As an individual, as a young athlete, that would be something that I would be concerned about, because ultimately, again, we have to go back and look at this as a 360-degree perspective in terms of our strength and conditioning programs. You know, what is it that we're trying to accomplish when we go into the gym? What kind of training is it that we're looking for? What kind of strength and conditioning program do we really need to buy into? So with us, again, there's a very particular process about the way we do those things. So when our athletes come in, we sit down with them for an hour consultation. We find out everything from, you know, where their body's needs are, to what their training history is, to what their background is, to, you know, what kind of things they're looking to work on individually or as a team if we're working with team settings. So once we kind of establish some of the goal setting stuff and we figure out where we need to go, we need to then figure out from an assessment perspective, what is it that your body needs? Again, how well does your body move? Where maybe do you need to address strength or power or mobility issues? So these are all things that, you know, we kind of tackle as part of our Ignite 360 evaluation that we run. What we do as a part of our training is called periodization, or periodized training programs, where we're really making sure that we're having our body peaking at the right times, but also emphasizing recovery, nutrition, and the other elements that surround. And again, going back to that, you know, 360-degree perspective of training I was speaking of, ask yourself at all times, am I receiving a 360-degree perspective to training, or am I training because Joe told me I needed to come in here and get better at something?
So Brent, you know, with social media, we
Yeah.
see a lot of different individual fitness drills, also goaltending drills, hockey drills. How can we look at social media and leverage that in an advantageous way? Like, how can we look at social media and find stuff that's going to help us if we don't have access to you all the time?
Right. Well, I think first it comes down to educating yourself. I mean, obviously social media, like you said, is an excellent outlet. It provides a wide base of different exercises that you're able to do. What social media doesn't do is it doesn't give you a good indication of what it is you need to better yourself personally. So if you don't have access to an individual strength coach, or you don't have access to somebody that's, you know, that can give you quality exercises individually, and you want to kind of utilize social media, you have to go onto social media and be a bit more selective about the particular exercises that you're looking at, and gaining an understanding about how those exercises are going to benefit you. So if you're, for instance, someone who's looking to improve their butterfly, you're not going to go on there and start looking at how to sumo deadlift 5 million pounds, right? You've got to kind of find exercises that are maybe going to key in on increasing your mobility, exercises that are going to increase groin and hip strength. So key in on what specifically you're looking for, and learn to utilize the exercises to your benefit that way. And also become a very critical thinker. I mean, there's so much information out there nowadays. It's really important to pick through some of that information and use your own critical thinking skills to determine whether they're not going to be beneficial. I mean, you talked about that not long ago. Squat jumps onto skates with tires. Kids, bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think critically. Risk versus reward. Is that worth it? So again, just use your critical thinking skills and try to figure out for yourself what works best and what's going to apply to your programming specifically.
I think one thing as humans, we want to do the easy, fun stuff. And
Right.
so whether you're on the ice or off the ice, things that look cool are something kids gravitate to.
Yeah.
So when you have a young kid, how do you know what age they can start into training with you, and how can you sort of funnel them into the purposeful stuff
Sure.
and things they should be avoiding that actually
Yeah.
won't help their job? So what age would you get people started at with the off-ice training?
Sure, great question. You know, funny enough, we get kids here as young as 8 years old. When we sit down, we get 8 years old is pretty young to start training, but what we're doing with that individual that is the key. You know, again, we're not using the sumo squat as an example. We're not just throwing our 8-year-old kids right into sumo squats or something crazy like that. We're trying to kind of figure out, again, from a perspective of maturity, you know, where that child is at, or where that individual is at, because that's a big part of buying into the programming as well. But we do have to keep it fun as well at that age group. So
Right.
figuring out ways to kind of keep it fun, keep it engaging, but also keeping it purposeful, and trying to find out a bit about your training history, the athlete's training history, to see kind of maybe where they're coming from or what experiences they may have had. So again, it really ultimately comes down to the evaluation process or the assessment process and trying to figure out what your body needs specifically. And then what we can do is we can mix in some of those fun drills that you may enjoy, but we can also kind of take some of those purposeful exercises that are going to really help to make you better on the ice as a goalie and just better as an athlete overall.
So going to the other end of the spectrum, a lot of people that look at stuff online are mature people like yourself that still play the sport, hockey, and love it.
Yeah.
And what would you say would be the most challenging thing they have to take care of their fitness, prevent injuries? How do you change programming for an adult guy that isn't trying to do this as a profession?
Sure. I think, again, it ultimately comes down to them as an individual and what their body needs. It sounds like I'm repeating the same answer, but it truly is an art form in that sense that you really have to kind of figure out where that individual is at. So while there may be some of the exercises that we do with, OHL, NHL goalies that could apply to your weekend warriors as well, it's unlikely we're probably just going to jump right into those exercises if Joe hasn't played hockey in, 5 years. So again, really finding ways in that area to build some of that base foundational fitness, just improving their aerobic fitness, improving their lifestyle habits outside of the game. Because we're always thinking on ice, but a big majority of the on ice element comes to what it is we're doing off the ice, how we prepare ourselves adequately for the on ice component of things. So just building a foundation of fitness, aerobic and anaerobic fitness, mobility, flexibility, strength and power, and having a really good kind of foundation of those things. So again, if you're someone who hasn't been involved in the game, or you're still involved in the game, like ourselves, but we were not quite at the level we used to be, it's still important to take care of yourselves. A big part of that is for injury prevention. You can't play the game you love if you're always on the shelf with injured knees and injured ankles and groin pulls and handy pulls, and we've seen it all. So finding preventative maintenance ways to kind of incorporate home training based activity and activity with a qualified professional as well.
And I think that's one thing that would be good advice for the people that watch this is there's a lot of online programs, a one size fit all.
Right.
Drop your money, we'll send you a program.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge business, and I know it goes on a lot.
Yep.
But I mean, there's got to be some obvious negatives to just following a program. It might help you, it might not. What would you say would be some key warning signs to advise people to stay away from just one size fits all online programs that people give you?
Yeah, I mean, they're everywhere.
Right.
We see them absolutely everywhere now. And again, you don't know where the conditioning routines are coming from as well. That's what makes it even more dangerous. Who's putting these routines together? And is that person qualified to do so? That's a big question in that. But ultimately, for a lot of parents and a lot of individuals, the reason that has become so popular is because of the financial element. Well, the financial element can't back you out of injuries, unfortunately.
Right.
So if you're doing an online program and you're repetitively doing an online program that may not be tailored or specifically tailored towards you, you're also heightening your increased level of injury incidency. There's a possibility you could hurt yourself in doing so. So you got to ask yourself, sure, you might be saving a little bit of money to do some generic online programming, but ultimately, is that what is best for your body? So again, I mean, in terms of the key warning signs you got to look for is that you got to look into a lot of like the schemes, where you'll go online and buy into this for this monthly program. Well, guess what? Your program is probably the same as millions of other people's programs, right?
Right.
So again, that's what kind of separates us apart from that online programming element that we choose to offer. Is online programming something that we offer? We do, but here's the kicker with the way we offer it. We offer it through a program called Coach Me Plus. Now, Coach Me Plus is only given to athletes that are actually working with us here in the facility as well. So
it goes hand in hand.
It goes hand in hand, exactly. It's a standalone platform just utilizing online programming. The ability to gain individualization in that programming is becoming difficult, but it's becoming easier in the sense that now there's Zoom, there's FaceTime, there's ways that you can sit face to face like we are with being thousands of miles away. So again, you're kind of, just going back to the basics, looking for the qualifications of the individual designing the program, asking yourself, what is the purpose of this program? What specifically is it doing to benefit me? Is it at my level of expertise? I mean, if in the first phase of your program you're doing single leg RDLs and you can't even do a standard barbell deadlift, or you've never had any instruction with doing something along that lineup, you got to look at kind of the level of those exercises and the progressions and the regressions involved with those exercises to understand better if that's going to be suitable for you or not. So again, there's so many red flags that you got to really look for when you're going with online programming. Is it a valid option for someone looking to get started in programming? I'd say there's a lot more valuable ways to kind of get yourself involved in training. Even if you meet with a qualified professional, have an assessment, gain a better understanding of where your body's at least that individual is going to be able to then offer you something more valid for your body, for your body type, for your injury history, et cetera, right? So
I think that's it's great advice, and I think the other element that's missing from the online portion is the motivation and the hands-on.
Sure.
So you can correct form, because when you're doing an online program, you don't know if you're truly doing it accurately, maybe causing a risk of injury, but also not being effective in getting the gains you want because you don't have the trainer there walking you through proper form. And the motivation element, because we're humans, and we're, when you're at home in a garage doing something, you'll work to a certain point.
Right.
But when you have somebody else there to motivate you, you want to, I don't know the words, impress your coach, but you don't want to let your coach down. And that happens whether you're 40 or whether you're 16. The coach is there, and you don't want to give him a bad impression of you. So how do you feel, to wrap this up, the important factor of your personality and being able to relate directly to a human being as your coach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel that in our industry there's ever going to be a time or place where we're, us as strength and conditioning coaches or trainers are fully replaced by that. Whether it be artificial intelligence or online programming, there's always going to be a valid reason to have individuals such as myself and other qualified professionals out there beside you. So, I mean, ultimately, I see the value in having a personality beside you being very important. You have to be able to mesh with that individual. You have to have a personality type that's compatible, at least.
Right.
If you're going into a strength and conditioning studio, that's something that you have to measure for yourself as well. If you're not an individual, or you're a little quieter individual, and you've got somebody that's coming in that's screaming and yelling at you and training you till you puke, then you might have found the wrong fit. So it's really important to look at the different types of personalities and what they offer. And again, having that personality that's going to be able to constantly gauge your progress and know when exercises need to be regressed or progressed, and determining that. Also for reevaluation purposes. If you have a strength and conditioning coaches there, they can reevaluate, reassess, look at the specific movements and determine what factor needs to be installed next to the program to make it efficient. I mean, ultimately, again, your online programming is not going to do that for you. Sure, they might change your exercises, once a month or once every other week. What is there in there to determine whether or not you've actually gained to the point where you should progress? And a lot of our blocks or our periodization phases last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks when we're doing specific exercises. Now, throughout those training blocks, there's different changes to the exercises, repetitions, sets, tempos, they all change. Those aren't things that can be measured through online programming. Those aren't things that you can see through online programming. So having someone to visually kind of look at different elements of your body, how well you're moving and when things need to be adjusted, it's here for the long term. It's not going anywhere.
I always tell kids, we all practice about the same amount of games, or play the same amount of games, practice the same amount.
Right.
We're all getting better at about the same rate. So unless you're some God's gift physical specimen, the only way to rise out of the middle of this whole block of athletes is to do extra stuff that people won't do. And let's be honest, off-ice training is hard.
Yeah.
And you get the results of it, and you see that on the ice unequivocally. So I always tell kids, if you want to get to the NHL, don't stop more pucks.
Right.
Do stuff that other people aren't doing, because everybody's stopping the same amount of pucks, but they're not going to do the off-ice. So, being around NHL guys that have won Stanley Cups, you've coached guys that have been in the NHL for a long time. What would you say, to summarize, is the biggest difference you've seen between professional athletes at the highest levels and the average kid trying to get there?
Motivation, commitment, and dedication. They treat it as a craft. So to them, what they do day in and day out, the routines that they establish for themselves day in and day out, the professionalism at which they carry themselves going in and out of the gym or in and out of the fitness settings would be the exact same as to what they bring to their job day in and day out, being NHL players or OHL players or professional athletes, because we work with a lot of different athletes. But ultimately, just seeing the commitment they have, the waking up at the same time, the going to bed and getting proper sleep and ensuring that their nutrition is on track, and looking at a lot of the stuff external to the gym. Because often we think our gains come from within the gym setting, within a strength and conditioning setting, when in reality, as a strength and conditioning coach, I might be working with an athlete for, say, 1 to 2 hours in a given day. Beyond that 1 to 2 hours, everything outside of that box comes down to what that athlete is willing to do to become better. And ultimately, looking at some of the athletes that I've worked with who have made it to those settings, they've made it a commitment to themselves to eat better, to sleep right, to train daily, and some of those guys don't necessarily love getting in the gym either. So having the motivation just to keep doing it, just like, someone who's never exercised in their life, that's where there is a similarity to something like that. Because ultimately they, as much as they love what they do on the ice, there are some guys that don't necessarily love being in the gym either. So, having the motivation to continuously get in here and train hard and to again commit everything that they have outside of the gym settings to go towards what they need to do to become better on the ice as well. So.